So first, thank you for your attendance today. So I'm Jean-Marc Lambert. I'm working in Paris in the EMEA consulting of SUSE. That is part of what we call professional services. We accompany the customers in the development or the deployment of solutions, but also all the surrounding ecosystem. So today I have a topic on the way to make some kind of DevOps pipelines on our CaaS platform. This toolbox, we can say, is called Jenkins-X. So it's what I will first present to you during about half hour, and after we'll have a demo on all that stuff. Okay. So first, the landscape that today we have in the DevOps team is that people love containers. So that I think that you have since the beginning of this session, at least the conference, seen that people are looking for more containers everywhere. Also, the adoption of microservices architectures. We have got before, I think, another session on that. Need a lot of automation in the CI/CD, the pipeline, the way to produce from source code to the staging or the production environment. Also, what is needed is to have multiple environments to be able to make developments, staging, integration, testing. Also, what is very important is that developers want to have a kind of ISO prod environment for making their own developments. So that also will be part of the solution here. And ops want also to be able to manage the configuration management of what they deploy, meaning that in one given environment, they want to know what is deployed and to be able to reproduce, to roll back eventually from one version to previous. Okay, about the statement as well, we all know now that Kubernetes is becoming or has become already the best of breed container platform or orchestration platform that is available now in all public cloud. But also on-prem, we need to have the same experience, and it's why the SUSE CaaS Platform has a quite good offer there. And Jenkins-X, in fact, is trying to solve most or to answer to part of or most of this issue that we stated here. Okay. So what is really this the way this project came? In fact, is started by James Strachan, that was before working in Red Hat. And in fact, now he left and is in CloudBees. This project is coming historically from a kind of development with OpenShift. Okay, it was a kind of we can say so pre-development of some features that have been integrated afterwards in OpenShift, but now it's becoming something completely different. And in fact, James Strachan has created a new way of developing this, and he took all the historical things from his previous Fabricate project to make this Jenkins. So it's also based on a set of features like the using of every artifact has to be version driven, which is very important. Automation, trunk-based development, implementation of continuous integration, and also on continuous delivery, and also try to use the decoupled architectures in terms of microservices. Also to be able to empower the teams to be able to make everything they want, either they are in dev and ops, and together they work to provide some solutions. So in fact, what is the Jenkins-X itself? So in fact, it's becoming for a single CLI, called JX, so it's a Go program. This program is multi-feature. It can be used to create your cluster on any cloud. You can say JX create cluster on AKS. You give the credential, it's creating for you, and after it's deploying the full stack on top of it, and you can do that on Google, on Amazon, on Azure, and for sure you can do it also on on-prem deployment. It's what I did here for the CaaS solution. In fact, as soon as you have done, you have an endpoint with a kube control on your Kubernetes, you can deploy this JX. So in fact, it's using Kubernetes for deployment configuration management. It's also basing all the CI/CD, we can say configuration and storage and memorization on Git. It's really Git that is the main source of data storage for, and not only because there is the GitOps type of approach. Jenkins is the central, we can say, engine to make the workflow running. Scaffold is a very nice tool that helps in making the Docker images or the Creo images, depending, but it's the same. And Helm is used for the templating of all the deployment on top of Kubernetes. So it's really using a set of open source tools to make everything. So also when we start to deploy this tool, what is by default created? You have an environment like staging and prod. And also, after that, you can create some application, kind of quick starts. And you have a command called gx create quick start. This creates a quick start in Node.js, in Java, in Go, in anything. And it's creating a project structure on your machine. And also, it's creating on GitHub the storage for that, historization and everything. And it's connecting this GitHub to Jenkins to make the webhooks to automate the processes. Okay? And also, it's connecting this application by default to your environments like staging and prod. And you will be able, in a single way, to modify your code. So when you will modify, you will push it to GitHub. GitHub will generate an event to start a job in Jenkins. It will automatically create everything like the image, the Helm version, a lot of things like that. It will deploy it on your staging by default. Okay, this is the first thing. And after, you will be able to promote what you have done in a production environment if it's ready. So this is the very simple pipeline, but you can have multiple tests, multiple staging steps inside the pipeline if you want. Okay, so that's the set of tools that are used. So I think I've gone through it, but mostly for the config, it's mostly on Git. Any Git, it can be a GitLab, it can be anything. The deployment is based on Helm. It's also supporting and deploying inside the configuration the Monocular and Chart Museum that are a Helm chart repository. And for sure, it's running on top of Kubernetes. For the store, we can use also Nexus if you have some Java artifacts, for example. And for the building, is using Draft and Scaffold for making the images on the storage. And the Draft is about build packs for creating the different language support, because you will see later on that we support most of the languages. And Jenkins is really the engine running it. So in fact, Jenkins-X is supporting most of the developments, we can say lifecycle, from a code change to pull request to review, merge, staging, and production. So it's really something to help in making this full process. This is the standard one. For sure, you can make more complex one if you want. It's really programmable, and everything is in Git. So it's very good. So the architecture itself, so you have for sure the Kubernetes cluster at the center. You have what I said already, some different environments that will be targeted for deployment your application, your services. You have some Git provider with some webhooks to interfere between the change that you make, the event that you have in Git with some Kubernetes running, some Jenkins running Kubernetes. You have also some UI and some CLI that are provided. And by default, it's also deploying a registry in your Kubernetes to have a local image store if you need. Also, there is a build controller to make the build of your images and everything, and the pipeline activities that are run behind this Jenkins. So typically, what we have, we can recap the structure. So we have the application in Git. So we have different repos. Nothing is shared. There is one environment for the staging you want to target, one environment for the production, one other project on Git for your app, or you may have multiple apps, and these multiple apps can be deployed to the same staging. So the staging can be the service 1, 2, and 3, and everything will be managed inside here like a source code. Okay? And out of that, the Jenkins will take this and will deploy what is described in this to the right environment. And here, when we have an application, it will compile, it will do the image provisioning, it will do the Helm chart preparation, and also it will deploy in what is called a preview environment, so we'll see that in the demo, something before you merge to your master branch in Git, for example, you can have a preview of what is proposed in the PR. Okay? Automatically, it will create that, and it will put in Git the URL of your deployed proposal. So like that, the guy that makes the review can just see also what is the result of the deployment for this. You can see it's working or not. Is it the good UI or things like that? Okay. So that's the structure. Okay. So inside each project, so there is the application project. So here it's an application content. So Jenkins-X adds some files for all of this process. So there is first the Docker file that is used to generate the image according to your application. So it will take, depending on the languages, the right base image, plus some additional things. And if you want, you can modify that and make your own. Here it's just based on templates. The Jenkins file itself is the code, the Groovy code for the Jenkins pipeline. Scaffold.yaml is the way to build the image out of your artifacts. It can be Node.js, Java, depending on what. Makefile are, in fact, all the steps that are used inside the pipelines. And charts are the place where they put the end chart that are used for deploying your application or your service. Inside an environment, you have a similar type of structure where you have a different, some stuff about the environment here. You have a chart that is containing the dependencies. So you can say, in this environment, I have this service at this version, and this list will be processed by Jenkins to deploy with Helm the different components. So I think that we'll skip that. So now the CaaS platform. So you know about everybody or not? I need to go through. Who doesn't know CASP? Because we spoke about it, I think, since a time. Okay, I will go through it. So in fact, what is CASP? CASP is the SUSE Kubernetes offer, okay? That is a certified vanilla Kubernetes. Today we are at version 1.30. We support both CRI-O and Docker as the container runtime. So this can run either on-prem or in the cloud. So either in the virtual machine or in the cloud, because we can deploy this on Azure, Google, or AWS as we want. So the airbag is the standard way. It can be integrated with your LDAP or IDs for user and group management. So there is, in addition to the vanilla Kubernetes, a management layer that is allowing the management, the extension of a cluster, the deployment, and finally the deployment automation of this. So the deployment is based on Salt automation. So inside the VMs, you have a Salt minion, and you have a master minion that is on what we call an admin node, and this helps in the full automation of your deployment. Okay, so Helm is the UI that is presented here, where you see the status of your cluster, and it will also manage the updates. If you have patches, seamlessly, and it will run the updates of your OS, for example, without any interruption. So that's a typical configuration, but I think that it's for any type of Kubernetes. The minimum one is to have, so here what I spoke about, the admin server, one master, that is the master of Kubernetes, and two workers, that is typically the minimum. In terms of persistent storage, so we support for sure NFS, that is one not necessarily very performant offer, but for sure we support more the SUSE enterprise storage that provide you with a RBD type of storage. Okay. So the deployment, I said already, it's done deployment of Jenkins on CaaS platform. So I consider that I have already done my clusters. That's what I did here. And here I just install the Jenkins by saying gx install the provider equal Kubernetes. And if in this console I already have my existing kubectl credentials, it will create everything through some question answer, for example, for the Git name, password, thing like that. I think we can automate more, but here, if you deploy that once, it's quite easy to make it manually to understand how this works. So out of that, what we get, I think I said it already, but we automate the deployment of Helm inside, the scaffold, Canico, all these components. Okay. So all that is, in fact, configured inside Kubernetes. And you find also in Git some repos for the staging and production. You have also the setting up of Jenkins pipelines for the different projects. So at the beginning, when we install Jenkins, you don't have any app. You have just the environment pipelines. And after, when you will create a new application or you will import a GitHub repo application existing, it will create the webhooks from this to create some pipeline inside your deployment of Jenkins. Okay. In fact, I will maybe skip that because it's doing some. I would prefer having more time for the demo. So for each team that works on Jenkins, we'll have a Jenkins Master. Will not necessarily share because you can have one in your namespace and you can just play with it. What is important is that the Jenkins Master is launching some slave or some pool of Kubernetes pod to build dependent of a language, for example, it will use a different image for making the build. Okay? So these slaves are automatically driven by the Jenkins Master. So Nexus is used for storing. So Chart Museum, I spoke about it, and you may have a Docker registry. Okay. So the build packs, it's something that is important because it's the way the Jenkins-X make the images out of your different language source. And for each build pack, you have a default Docker file, Jenkins file, a default M chart as well, some different things like that. It will just customize by templating. And then after, if you don't have in these languages what you need, you can write your own because it's very simple. You take an example out of it and you just copy and create your own. Okay. So about the CLI, the Jenkins CLI, so you have, I spoke about creating or installing the cluster, deploying the Jenkins, but you have also the possibility to create what we call the quick starts or the Spring for Java. Quick start is you say, I want to create a quick start, and it will propose you a few templates like Node.js, Go, Ruby, anything. And it will automatically create an array in your PC and in GitHub as well with your account or your GitLab if you have a GitLab. And in fact, it's something that is very fast to do. Then there is the import if you have an existing project. So it will, after that, automate the CI/CD pipelines for new and imported projects. So you will set up the Git repository accordingly, the webhooks, and it will trigger the first pipeline to construct and deploy your first template application. Okay. So after, what is important to understand is that there are some, we can say, default workflows inside the pipelines. So for example, on a pull request, okay, what he will do, he will first compile and run some tests. Tests meaning in this context that he will verify that everything is here, the image is there, the M chart is okay, he can deploy with it. He will create a preview environment, as I said, to show you and to deploy what he will have constructed in the phase before. And he will also put a comment in the Git here, in the history. You will see here, for example, that I made a PR, okay? And here, the Jenkins will write a note inside Git to say the PR is built and available and a preview environment with here. And here I have a URL where I click and see the result of this deployment. Okay? And this is not done in the staging or in the prod environment. It's done in a specific namespace of Kubernetes where he will create that for the preview environment. Okay? So here is the type of steps that you have by default in these pipelines. So when you do a release, in fact, for a software or an application, in fact, he will create it, build the release, and after he will promote to the environment by default. So I said that you may have by default 2 environments, and by default as well, the staging is automatically deployed, but you may change it in GX. You can say, I want to deploy automatically as well in prod. So he will deploy first, for example, in staging, and if it's okay, he will deploy automatically afterwards in prod. But generally, you want to have a control because else you have a single environment. Okay? So here, you may do this. You can add your own logic behind, and you can select how you want to promote from one to the next environment. So I said already that the configuration is stored in Git for everything. So it's configuration as code for sure. All changes are also auditable and can be reverted, because if you say I deploy the version X of one of my end services, you can come back to the X-1 if this one is breaking something. Okay? And this can be done in a very fine-grained approach because it's inside a file that you have all the version, you have all the revision, you can roll back. Okay. So what is also important, and I think I said that already, is that you will have what is called here a dev pod. And the dev pod to me is very nice as a developer because you can create inside your Kubernetes cluster an environment that is isoprod, meaning you will have exactly the same environment, the same version of everything. You don't need to install on your PC the Go language with all the complexity you know about, or Node.js with the NPM, things like that. You can create a kind of virtual desktop in Kubernetes, and this is attached to your Git repo. Okay? And inside the pod, you connect as an SSH VM, and you can do everything you want. Okay? I will demonstrate that afterwards. Okay? So you may have also an ID that is attached inside the pod. So the pod is, so in the demo I will show you, I use an image that is also exposing the TEA ID, that is a web ID. And in fact, you can edit your own source code inside. And if you are OK with the code, you can just, from your dev pod, do a git push to update your git. And after that, it will enter the normal loop of rebuilding the things and putting that in the staging of production. Okay. So this is a very, very interesting way of developing because you don't need to install anything. And you can test with one version of the language, another version, things like that. Okay. So I think that I did the introduction. It's fine with you? Okay. So now I will try to make some demo. So it's always the amusing part. Okay. If I'm connected, yeah, it should be. So I will expose you, I prepare some desktops with some different windows, okay? So first I will expose you what is already deployed when you create your Jenkins environment in Jenkins itself. We'll also see what is the content of Git itself for the different projects. So here, for example, I have the pipeline that the pipeline of Jenkins that corresponds to the staging environment. Here's the production, and here's the pipeline for one project called Go HTTP 2703. Okay. Here in the Git itself, you find all the files that we'll see. But what will be interesting is to see when I will perform a change, this dynamic change, and how the Jenkins interact with Git. So here I have just put a curl loop that is just doing an HTTP curl to the endpoint of this application. And here what is in this window, in fact, is JX is also providing you with a kind of log. So it's all the transactions, all the operations that are made inside your JX are just visible here. So when I change something, I will see what's starting in JX, in the Jenkins. When it is promoted, is it OK, not OK? So all this is a kind of log window. And you also see the different URLs that are generated by the different applications you deploy. Okay, so here it's just a CLI where I play with JX itself. Okay, so first in the Jenkins site, okay. So here, when you go to one of these environment building, so you have what I shown already. So the steps of this build that are exposed. You have for sure all the logs here, so you see what has been done. But this is the normal, we can say, way to have Jenkins visions if you know about it. So if I go in the what is this one? No, this one is not OK. Oh, I've been disconnected by the network, it seems. So here it's the application built. So here, in fact, we have gone through, so the start, we will build the release. So in the build of release is just changing the version, sorry. And after it will put Helm release, and after promote that to the right environment. So it's the different steps. And if I click on it, I see all the logs that have been generated. So inside the Git itself, so you have, as I said, the project with some files, like for example here, the Docker file. Okay, so we'll see what is this Docker. So it's very, very simple. So here it's from scratch. So it's a very simple image. And after it's just creating that. Okay. Oh, sorry, going back to the previous view. So the Jenkins file here is if you know about Jenkins, you know that this is the way we write the pipeline itself. So it's a groovy type of software, of source. And inside that, you have the different steps, you have a different action. And all the actions are made by the JX command, in some case, like here, JX preview, JX stuff, or make. There are two tools that are used for that. Okay. Okay, so now if I go to a modification, okay, so here I have some files, so ls. So I have a file that is typically the main go, vim main up, sorry. So it's very, very simple. So here I will just modify that to show you what is occurring, okay. We have a 03, 04, git add git comic. Okay. So after this git, in fact, we will see, so if we go back to, as you probably have seen that in the past on different projects, you will see here in the most, I will go to the right project. Maybe this small, that's why I don't see this. So it should start. Normally, okay. I pushed yes. Okay. No, don't see this. Okay.
You haven't created a pull request yet, have you?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yes, for sure. I have to go in the. Okay. Sorry, I forgot that. I was already in another branch. It's the reason why. So here I'm here. So he say that I have got a change in this SUSECON branch. Okay. So now if I create a pull request, okay, this will be processed. Sorry, I forgot this point. So here, in fact, he's checking if there is a conflict in the merger or not. And here I will say, so just do it. Okay. So if I come back to my Jenkins, here, we'll have an event that is generated. And it should start the building of this PR. Yeah, so here we see that there is something that is coming. It's the PR number 2, okay? So this header, so it's allocating a new pod for making it, and it is starting this PR, okay? So this will take a few minutes, okay? But okay. So we can let it run, okay? So what in the inventory we can let it run and see what's occurring. I will expose you a second element that I spoke about before. It's the dev pod, because the dev pod is something that is a companion of that. This is really to make the general change in your code. It's going through the mainstream, and after you do a PR, it will merge and it will generate in the staging, then in the prod. So this is, can say, the normal cycle. That is, when you have some software that you know that is already mostly okay. When you are in a dev, that means maybe the step before, you can allocate what is called the dev pod, and this dev pod, in fact, you will have the same experience as if you were inside this running pod. You will have all the same components. You will have the Git, you will have the Go compiler, you will have everything, okay? And you have also JX inside. So you can do most of the thing inside the pod. So I will show you afterwards. You will let it progress. So when this is occurring, I will switch to the, maybe it's not yet in this window, in the run. And go to the code here to see what's the log file. So here it's the class. Because you know in Jenkins there is this view, and also there is what is called the OpenBlueOcean, and this one is a kind of a little bit modern UI compared to this previous one. Okay, so here you see what is going on with a more graphical view. Okay, and here you see what is all the steps that are behind. Okay, so here it has done it. So now if I come back to my Git environment. So here you see that he has notified in my Git that there is the build done for the PR2, that is the one we did. And here I have an URL that will be generated. And in fact, this new version that I have updated is normally available there. Okay? So if I go there, I have seen this, and it's the change I made with a new date, that is 03/04/19. So it's really quite nice because you can validate as a reviewer something you view and not just you have a result of your source code. And here is going as well from the Docker image creation, deployment through Helm. So it's using all the steps that you have in the normal way of deployment for any environment. And this one is a separate environment, that is the preview environment in this context. They call it like that, okay? What other story I prepared for you in this context? I thought I got it out. Yeah, I wanted also to show you about the promotion. When we have something that is in one environment, and we say now I want to promote to the environment, to the production, for example. So in fact, for making that, we go to the CLI here. We have in JX, we have get applications. You read it or not? It's okay. Get applications. And in that, in fact, I will do it again maybe. Okay. And in this, so it's a CLI. Huh? So you see, for example, for this application, that is Go stuff, I have in my staging environment a version 0.6. And so now I can say I would like to promote that in my production environment. So I say JX promote the application. And I want a version. I think it's equal, yes, 0.06. Where is no equal? And I say environment production. Sorry?
I think you're missing a dot.
Oh yeah, yes. Yes, agree. So here, as it's going to production, it's requesting my login, because for the other, it takes the default login credential. But when you are going to something like a production environment, it requests you again an authentication to be able to notify in Git that it has been approved by somebody that he knows. Okay? Because else you may have some problem. Everybody can do it. Okay? So in fact, he's taking this and pushing it back to the environment. Okay. So we'll see that running. I think it will take a few times. Okay. So I will maybe switch back to the next step because we have not so much time, we can say. We'll let it work in the background. We'll switch to the other window. Okay, so this window is a dev pod. So I created already. Here we are in the case of a node application. Okay, so this node application is in fact exposing this HTML page. So it's just a minimum HTTP server with an index file. Here I open the window that is the TEA editor. TEA editor is a web editor that is included in the pod that is deployed with the application. Okay? So when I deploy it, I have also a possibility to modify my code, so the dev pod code. Okay? So here is the editor window. Here I have another window in the dev pod where I can make a kind of watch to say each time I change my code, please update the deployment. Okay? And to do that, Jenkins-X provides you in the project a template that is called watch.sh. And if you say watch.sh, it will detect that you change your code. And if you change your code, it will automatically rebuild the image inside the pod. So we'll do a Docker build inside mostly. And also it will update the Helm chart with a new version, and it will deploy that for you. So this is a very, very fast loop of update, meaning that the page that we have here will be updated every time I will change my code here with a few seconds or a few maximum 30 seconds, okay? And as well in parallel, as I am in a Node.js environment, I may use npm run, and automatically it will expose it to the other window here. Meaning that inside, we have opened the port that is 8080, corresponding to the default port for this Node.js application. And here, we will see that immediately. So I will launch the watch here, because it's not watched yet. So here what we see, and maybe it's interesting to look at, is all the process that is used during this loop. So he's looking at the code change. If there's a code change, he's creating an image. You have seen all the steps of a Docker file. And after, he's also deploying with Helm. Here is all the steps of Helm in the edit environment. Here it's what is called edit. We got preview for PRs. We have staging and environment. Here we have an edit environment. Okay. So this is for the, we can say change. And here it's constructing the new image. I have another thing that is the npm. npm start, run, start, yes. Oh, npm start. Okay. So here I have a window that I've put with an auto refresh. So here it's really the npm start that is presented, meaning the npm result. Here it is the result of a real Docker image deployment in an edit environment, meaning that is a real Kubernetes deployment where here it's just the output of my DevOps or DevPod environment. Okay. So now if I'm going to my editor, so I will here, I put a thing in comment to speed up. So here, so the Node.js itself, you see it has been done immediately because in fact npm run and is detected and is updating automatically the page. Here it's creating the new page, so maybe it will not be exactly at the same level. Yeah, it is. So here you have seen in a few seconds. The difference between this one and this one is that here it's like on your NPM on your PC, where here we have gone through the process of creating a new image based on the Node.js environment, an update on the Helm and a deployment in Jenkins, in a Kubernetes. Okay. So it's really very interesting experience, and you have that for most of the language, all the languages. So it can be Go, Node.js, and everything. Okay. So it's, to me, very, very interesting in terms also of experience. And this here is running on Azure with CaaS deployed on Azure. Okay. So we have deployed on the IaaS layer of Azure, CASP, and on top of it, I have GX. And I have the same on my home PC, where I deploy CASP on VM, on KVM, and I have exactly the same experience. Okay. So it's really a multi-cloud, and you can have also inside GX some environments that could be in one cloud, like the staging, and the prod that is in another. And this is really planned to manage multi-cloud. Okay. So here we have seen the example and the architecture based on Jenkins, but this project is very active and also is providing now some a serverless way, meaning that rather than having Jenkins that run all the time, you have some build based on some specific tooling for building that in a Knative or other type of thing. Okay. So I will not demonstrate that because I have no time today, but you can run it with an extension of serverless approach that is very, very interesting in the context of build. So if you are running a build every minute, for sure having a Jenkins running all the time is good. But if you are maybe doing a build every week or every month, maybe it's okay to have an event-driven job that runs somewhere. You don't know where, but it has to run. Okay? And you have exactly the same experience. Okay? So I think that to me, that's typically the demo I wanted to show you. Maybe for the other part, it was a little bit fast because I needed more time to make the child, the PR, and the thing, and the time is building. But okay, thank you.